To our Regional Director, Dr. Evelyn R. Fitalvero, our Assistant Regional Director, Dr. Maria Inesi Asuncion, to our CLND Chief, Dr. Janet G. Veloso, to all chiefs of the regional office, functional divisions, our schools division superintendents, assistant schools division superintendents, all regional education program supervisors, CID chiefs of division Fs, and to all LMS trainers in the learning areas, the regional technical working group and staff, and of course, the English participants. Once again, a bountiful and healthful day to all of us. Well, to start, on and in behalf of the Bureau of Learning Delivery and the Bureau of Curriculum Development, I would like to cascade to you regional trainers here in PowerPoint the presentation of the most essential learning competencies or MELCs in English for grades 1 to 12. Well, due to COVID-19, the Department of Education urgently prepared the Learning Continuity Plan, or LCP, that highlights on the shortened academic calendar, different delivery models, and identification of MELCs. And then, as we all know, that prior to the pandemic, the BCD started working on the identification of essential learning competencies in the past 18 months as part of its initiative in reviewing the intended curriculum, where Bureau specialists, academic experts, and field implementers worked collaboratively employing the consensus judgment approach. And these LCs were determined based on a US-developed competency validation rubric intended to assure that learning competencies can reach the highest level of quality and comparability across schools, with adaptations being made to improve relevance by accounting the Philippine context. By the way, what is an ELC? It is aligned with national, state, and or local standards, frameworks. Then it connects the content to higher concepts across content areas. It is applicable to real-life situations. It is more important than other LCs, then it is not expected to be learned from parents or communities. Everybody is aware that we have various of learning competencies, as we can see in our curriculum guide. But then these 3,120 competencies are being converted into MELCs. In totality, there are 229. Like for instance, grade 1, current CG, 56, then MELCs, 12, and so on and so forth. So take note, we only have 229 for the MELCs. So now, in order to ensure that the grade level standards are maintained, the endurance criterion was used as the sole determiner for the MELC, which requires that the learning competency, or LC, be useful in lifelong learning. And to simplify, that the word endurance means continuous and long-lasting. Now, which LCs were considered enduring? First, those that work in close association with other competencies and other subjects, maintaining the curricular quality of integration. Example, for grade 4, quarter 1, identify different meanings of concept to specific words, denotation, and connotation. Next, those that do not recur, recurrence is limited at 30 stage while observing spiral progression. In other competencies in which we could observe recurrence, meaning to say repetitive. Like for example, for key stage 2, for grade 6, quarter 2, the competency is detect biases and propaganda devices used by speakers And then for key stage 3, grade 8, quarter 3, examine biases for or against made by the author. So this does not mean that the teacher is prohibited from teaching an LC more than once. Following the principle of curriculum flexibility and differentiated instruction, he or she is strongly advised to put focus and therefore repeat an LC should circumstance require. Ayan, so ibig sabihin, teacher factor pa rin as far as pedagogy or any other strategies. So as it requires, the teacher has really do something to modify just to reach out the learners. Another one, those LCs of the same nature that can be clustered together. As you can see the diagram, no? I mean, this illustration is very clear that among the many, these competencies are going to be clustered. Ayan. Okay, like this table here, that there are competencies, and then this encircled with the red marks, yep, are being studied until such time, no? Okay, this is actually the result of clustering. That is why it came out that the competency is to note significant details of various text types. In other words, from micro, nagiging macro siya. From many, nagiging ano na, one major thing. So that's it. Now, cluster competencies require unpacking and subtasking so that bigger or broader LCs may be broken down into manageable sub-competencies. Like, for example, use a variety of informative, persuasive, and argumentative writing techniques. This would entail a number of other competencies in order for it to be achieved. Ito na yung basihan niya. 1, making a strand. 2, gathering information from various sources. And the third one is citing sources of information. Now, how are the MELCs organized? So ito na. Okay, so you can see that there are competencies here that are being deleted, and the purpose of which is to be organized. Ayan. So that means for integration. And then the MELCs were arranged in a list based on cognitive demand, which makes a way for better curriculum flexibility as teachers are able to freely integrate the learning competencies without the restrictions of horizontal alignment. Now for the grading period, so say from quarters 1, 2, 3, 4. So here are the learning competencies. English, grade 6. Ito na, so for quarter 1, identify real or make-believe fact or non-fact images. Then, interpret the meaning suggested in visual media through a focus on visual elements, for example, lines, symbols, color, gaze, framing, and social distance. And then make connections between information viewed and personal experiences. And then for quarters 2, identify the purpose, key structural, and language of features of various types of informational factual text. Recognize evaluative word choices to detect biases and propaganda devices used by speakers. And compare and contrast content of materials viewed to other sources of information, just like print, online, and broadcast. And then now for the quarters 3, present a coherent comprehension report on different viewpoints of an issue and evaluate narratives based on how the author developed the elements. And then for the fourth quarters, compose clear and coherent sentences using appropriate grammatical structures, and these are the verb tenses, conjunction, and then adverbs. and then compose persuasive essay on self-selected topics. The schedule and time allotment of LCs in quarters are suggestive in nature. The duration of an LC is relative. What is required is that the list of competencies be achieved in the specified grade level. Another one is because content and performance standards in the English curriculum are described in such detail, the process of determining the MELCs required that some of these standards be forgone. And take note that we have 4 standards. We have the program, the grade level, the content, and the performance. Now let us have the walkthrough of the MELCs into 3 case stages. Now for case stage 1, that's for grades 1 to 3. Okay, grade level standards for grade 1. The learner listens for comprehension, speaks clearly, and uses appropriate expressions in talking about oneself, family, and other social context interactions. Grade 2. The learner listens critically to one to two paragraphs, use appropriate expressions in varied situations, and then read text for pleasure and information, critically and meaningful thought units, responds properly to environmental prints like signs, posters, comments, and requests, and writes legibly simple sentences and messages in cursive form. And then for grade 3, the learner listens critical to get information from text heard, demonstrates independence in using the basic language structure in oral and written communication, and reads with comprehension. Okay, let's now check this illustration here that the learning competency from K to 12 English curriculum guide. So these are all called merged. Okay, this group of words that are blocked, yep, with the red marks. So these are merged and then converted into one. So the retained or rephrased now as MELC, ito na. So this becomes read phrases, short sentences, and short stories consisting of words, write short the a, the I, the o, and the a. Then answer the who, what, and where questions about them. Again, this MELC is retained, rephrased, basing from the merged LCs. Okay, next one is ito na. Another learning competency from K to 12 English CG marked as dropped. Use common expressions and polite greetings. Why is it dropped? There is justification of that. That during the curriculum review in the 2019, this is one of the LCs tagged as desirable and was therefore no longer retained as a MELC. So that was the justification of that. Another one, LC from K to 12 English CG retained as MELC. Review, reading, and writing short a, I, o, and a words in CVC pattern. So the justification goes this way. This is an example of an LC from the CG that is retained to ensure a smooth flow of transition from reading to writing. Thus, a review of the short sound is necessary. This will also be helpful in case not all the short sounds were covered in the previous grade level. Now let us have a walkthrough of the MELCs, and this time for case stage 2 from grades 4 to 6. Now, for the grade level standards, grade 4, the learner listens critically to various text types and expresses ideas accurately in both oral and written forms, demonstrates confidence in the use of the language to meet everyday needs, and reads independently and gets relevant information from various text types. And then for grade 5, the learner listens critically to different text types, including news reports and other radio broadcasts, needs independently and gets relevant information from various text types, expresses ideas accurately and logically in oral and written forms, demonstrates interests in reading and confidence in the use of the language to meet various everyday needs. And then for the grade 6, the learner listens critically, communicates the feelings and ideas orally in writing with a high level of proficiency, and reads various text types, materials to serve learning needs in meeting a wide range of life's purposes. Now, again, out of many learning competencies, these are clustered into: use context clues to find meanings of unfamiliar words. Now, the learning competency from K to 12 English CG considered dropped: show willingness and enthusiasm in reading or listening to a literary text. And then the justification why this LC is dropped: all LCs under the attitude domain were deleted as this may be subsumed in another learning area, example ESP, that focuses on attitude affirmation. So when we say subsume, this is actually absorbed, no, into other LC. And this particular LC pala is on the other learning area, which is ESP. Another LC from K to 12, why is it retained as MELC? Write or compose an editorial. The justification on this is the identified LC was considered as MELC and therefore retained because it satisfied the endurance criterion, which states that a learning competency, or LC, should play a role in lifelong learning. In particular, given the cognitive demand of the LC, unpacking it would be necessitate, or it would necessitate, a number of other essential LCs, like, for example, making a strand, developing arguments, supporting claims with evidence. Again, the highlighted word in here is endurance. So meaning to say, continuous, and the other term for that is long lasting. Now let's have a walkthrough of the MELCs for Key Stage 3 for grades 7 to 10. Now the grade level standards for grade 7. The learner demonstrates communicative competence through his/her understanding of Philippine literature and other text types for a deeper appreciation of Philippine culture. And then for grade 8, the learner demonstrates communicative competence through his or her understanding of Afro-Asian literature and other text types for a deeper appreciation of Philippine culture and those of other countries. And then for grade 9, the learner demonstrates communicative competence through his or her understanding of British American literature, including Philippine literature and other text types, for a deeper appreciation of the Philippine culture and those of other countries. And for grade 10, the learner demonstrates communicative competence through his or her understanding of literature and other text types for a deeper appreciation of world literature, including the Philippine literature. Now, competencies now encircled with the red marks. Okay, the first one is use appropriate idiomatic expressions and a variety of basic interpersonal communicative situations. Since this LC style develops skills in employing a variety of interpersonal communication strategies, they merge into the MELC. And another one, select an appropriate colloquial or idiomatic word or expression as a substitute for another word or expression. So the competency for this is to employ a variety of strategies for effective interpersonal communication. As such, interview, dialogue, conversation, and many others. Now, this learning competency was retained. Okay, the competency goes like this: express one's beliefs, convictions based on the material viewed. Why is it retained? Due to its compliance to the endurance criterion. Expressing one's belief or conviction on material viewed is an indication that a learner has already established skills on making a stand taught in earlier grade level. Another one, these learning competencies were dropped due to recurrence. What are these competencies? Ito na, so listen for important points signaled by volume, projection, pitch, stress. Yep, same thing with. Parang nagkaiba lang doon sa sa first word, then followed by almost similar words. Note the changes in volume, projection, pitch, stress, intonation, juncture, and rate of speech. Another one, listen for important points. Okay, there's that volume, projection, stress, intonation. Then next is, yeah, they almost have the same words used here. And then these learning competencies were dropped due to recurrence. Ayan, due to repetition. So these competencies now are being subsumed in. That's why you have to employ now a variety of strategies for effective interpersonal communication. And then pasok na dyan ang interview, dialogue, conversation. Ayan. So, again, from dropping into subsuming. Ayan. Tama ba ang aking term? So, the new competency now is to employ a variety of strategies. Okay. Now for case stage 4, the senior high school grades 11 to 12. So we have the course description with the course subject, the reading and writing for grades 11 and 12. The development of reading and writing skills as applied to a wide range of materials other than poetry, fiction, and drama. Okay. I want you to see the learning competencies. The first one, the learner now is to describe a written text as connected discourse. And then number 4, identifies properties of a well-written text as to organization, coherence, and cohesion, the language use, and the mechanics. You know, these LCs were merged into a modified LC since both develop skills on written text. So the final one now is evaluate a written text based on its properties as to organization, coherence, and cohesion, the language use, and mechanics. The competency goes way explains how one's purpose is a crucial consideration in academic and professional writing. You know, this LC was dropped since it is already subsumed in the competency below. Thus, identifies the unique features of and requirements in composing text that are useful across disciplines, like a book review or article critique, literature review, research report, project proposal, and position paper. Ayan, so to all participants, ayan, so thank you for listening. Then if you have something to be emphasized, to be discussed, to be asked later on during the open forum. Okay, once again, thank you so much for listening. This is Manuel P. Vallejo, in charge of the English or the regional focal person in English. Once again, good day, everyone.
Okay, so I will now present the walkthrough with the milk in mathematics. So we will start with the subject that pervades life at any age and in any circumstance. Thus, its value goes beyond the classroom and school. Mathematics as a school subject, therefore, must be learned comprehensively and with much depth. So the twin goals of mathematics in the basic education levels 2 to 10 are critical thinking and problem solving. Critical thinking, according to Stephen and Paul, 1987, is the intellectual discipline process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, or evaluating information gathered from or generated by observation, experience, reflection, reasoning, communication as a guide to a belief and action. So on the other hand, mathematical problem solving is a way around to find solutions around a difficulty, around an obstacle, and finding a solution to a problem that is unknown. So these two goals are to be achieved with an organized, rigorous curriculum content, a well-defined set of high-level skills and processes, desirable attitude and values, appropriate tools, taking into account the different content of the Filipino learners. So there are five content areas in the curriculum adapted from the framework. We have numbers, number sense, measurement, geometry, patterns in algebra, and probability and statistics. So the specific skills and processes to be developed are knowing and understanding, estimating, computing, and solving, visualizing and modeling, representing, communicating, conjecturing, reasoning, proving, decision making, implying, and connecting. So the following values and attitudes are to be honed as well. We have accuracy, creativity, objectivity, perseverance, and productivity. So we recognize that the use of appropriate tools is necessary in teaching mathematics. So this includes manipulative objects, measuring devices, calculators and computers, smartphones and tablets, PCs, and the internet. So let us move to the identification of the most essential learning competencies from our current curriculum guide, learning competencies. So the Department of Education conducted a curriculum review of the intended curriculum. So they map essential and desirable competencies. They identify the prerequisite knowledge and skills within the learning area. Analysis of conduct analysis of interconnectedness of prerequisite knowledge and skills among learning competencies across learning areas. So from the curriculum review of grade 2, second quarter, number 10, for competencies number 24, for example, 24 to 27, the four competencies are considered essential learning competencies. And how do we know that the competencies are essential. If that competency is what the students need, considered indispensable to building skills, to equip learners for the next grade level and for lifelong learning. So these we were considered as essential. And because they were essential, of course, they have to undergo endurance criterion. As we can see from their identification of NELC, we have identified that only competency 24 and 27 satisfies endurance criterion. How do we know that the competency satisfies the endurance criterion? What do we mean by endurance? Okay. So endurance is the competency will remain with learners long after a test or unit or study is completed if it is useful beyond a single test or unit of a study. So we are also merging number 25 and number 26, that's the action taken. Because as you can see from the two competencies are related and may be harmonized, unified for a more focused development of the concept. Here, another example, we have curriculum review of grade 2 again. So for competencies number 28, 29, 30, 31. So only competency number 29 and 30 are considered essential. So the competency 28 and 31 were considered desirable. And upon identification of them, those desirable competencies were taken out and included as most essential learning competencies. So what left? Competency number 29 and 30, of which they are considered essential. How do we know that? How to determine that the competency is a desirable competency? If, if that competency will only enhance education, but will not be necessary in building foundational skills of our learners. So that is desirable competencies. Another example for curriculum review of grade 6 measurement. Um, Competency number 70, 1, 22, 73, 75, 76 were essential, and 74 and 77 were considered desirable. But during their identification, they also did not include and drop competency number 71 because it was identified that the learning competency is more of a teacher's action. How to use the MELC, the most essential learning competencies in mathematics. First, appraise the content standard in each quarter of your grade level. The content standards guide you in tracking the learning content you book or per quarter. Plan the instructional activities based on performance standards, that is designing instructional activities tasks suited for the type of learning delivery modality you need. Contextualize the instructional task whenever necessary. Number three, examine the identified notes for each quarter. You have to remember that time will be flexible because what is being prioritized is the development of math skills over competence in content knowledge. So the MELC is the learning goal for the quarter. And task is the MELC is a big chunk of a learning goal. That is why at the end of my presentation, we'll be discussing unpacking of competencies because there were also competencies that were of a big chunk of a learning goal. So let us compare the number of learning competencies in the original curriculum guide that we're using now and that we are presently using, and the essential learning competencies and the most essential learning competencies. For grade 1, we have current uh, curriculum guide, a total of 66 learning competencies, down to 62 considered as considered as essential learning competencies, and we only have 38, the most essential learning competencies. So for grades 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, a total of 741 learning competencies. And we have only 657 essential learning competencies with a total of 543 identified as the most essential learning competencies. Let us compare also the number of competencies retained, dropped, merged from the original curriculum guide by grade level. As we can see, those grade level with the highest number of competencies retained is grade 9. Grade 9. And the most number of competencies are being merged and replaced. Um, grade 1. The most number of competencies dropped is grade 5 and grade 6. So that's the comparison. Let us now have a walkthrough of stage 1 health. So for mathematics grade 1, quarter 1, we have a total of 10 competencies identified as the most essential learning competencies because some of the competencies were merged, replaced, dropped. Like for example, for competencies number 1, number 6, 7, and 2 and 8 were merged and replaced. And competency number 4 was dropped. Number 12 and number 13 merged and replaced. 14 and 15 merged and replaced. So for mathematics grade 1 quarter 2, a total of 8 competencies identified as the most essential because learning competency 27 and 36 were dropped. 21 and also 22. So competency number 18, 19, 20, 23, 24, 25 were merged and replaced because they are related competencies. For grade 1 second quarter, for competency number 30, 31, 32, those were merged and replaced. For 32, number 30 competency was dropped. For grade 1, quarter 3, we have a total of 12 identified most essential learning competencies because competency number 39 and 40 were merged and replaced, and 41 and 42 were also merged and replaced. The competency number 48, 49 also were merged and replaced. For quarter 4, grade 1, a total of 8 competencies considered as most essential because competency number 58, 59, and 60 were merged and replaced, while competency 61, 65, and 56 were dropped. For mathematics grade 2, quarter 1, we have a total of 14 most essential learning competencies because competency number 1, 2 were merged, 7, 8 merged, 9, 10, and 11 were also merged. It is because competencies are related and some were subsumed in some of the competencies. Competency number 16, 17 merged, replaced. Competency number 18, 19, 20, 21 were merged and replaced, while competency number 22 was dropped. Quarter 2 of mathematics grade 2, we have 10 most essential learning competencies because learning competency number 28, 31, and 41 were dropped. Competency number 25 and number 26 were merged and replaced. For mathematics, it's a quarter grade 2, competency number 32, 33 merged, replaced, 34, 35 were also merged and replaced. Competency number 39 and 40 merged and replaced, which they were related. So we just move to quarter 3 of grade 2, total of 15 most essential learning competencies. Competency number 43 and 48 dropped. Competency number 51, 52 merged and replaced. Competency number 54, 55 merged and replaced. Replaced. 58 dropped. For competency number 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, and 68 were all dropped. Because as you can see, the reason of dropping learning competencies were integrated in some aspects. So for quarter 4 of mathematics grade 2, we only have 15 competencies, most essential, because competency number 70, 71 were merged and replaced. Competency number 72, 74 merged and replaced. 73 and 78 merged and replaced because they were related. 77, 79 again merged and replaced. While 83, 84, 80, while 83 and 84 were dropped. So for competency number 88, 89, 92, and 93, those competencies were dropped because they observed that competency 88 and 89 were not appropriate for grade 2. So there's still a master reading and writing. So we have written from the action process. So for mathematics grade 3, quarter 1, we have most essential learning competencies at 15. While learning competency number 15 and 24 we drop. Competency number 5 and 6 merge and replace. 8 and 9 merge and replace. 13, 14 merge and replace. 19 and 20 merge and replace. For quarter 2 of grade 3, we only have 14 most essential learning competencies because learning competency number 36 and 45 were dropped. Learning competency number 25 and 26, 27 were all merged and replaced because they were related. So competencies number 28, 29, 30, 31, 32 merge and break. So competencies number 40 and 41 merge and break. So let us move to quarter 3 of mathematics grade 3. Total of 13 most essential learning competencies. Because competencies number 27, 49 were merged and replaced. 50 and 51, 52 were also merged and replaced, while competency number 6 was cut. It's integrated in the art subject. For mathematics grade 3, quarter 4, we have only 13 most essential learning competencies. Because competency number 63, 64 were merged and replaced. Competency number 65 was replaced. Competency number 58 and 69 merged and replaced. Competency number 71, 72, 74, those competencies were dropped. So let us now move to our walkthrough in page 2 now. Let us start with quarter 1 of mathematics grade 1. For mathematics grade for quarter 1, we only have 14 most essential learning competencies. For in the identification of those essential learning competencies, competency number 12 and 19 were dropped. Competencies number 3 and 5 were merged and replaced. Competency 14 and 15 merged and replaced. Competency number 20, 21 merged and replaced. For quarter 2, for grade 4, we have only 18 learning competencies. Because learning competency number 29 and 28 was dropped. 26, 27 were merged and replaced, while 30, 35 were dropped. Okay, so let us move to quarter 2 of grade 4. Total of 17 learning most essential learning competencies. Competency number 45, 46 were merged and replaced. Competencies number 60, 66, and 67 were dropped. For quarter 4 of math grade 4, we only have 15 now. For 69, number 69 competencies, 71, 23, 26, and 86 were all dropped competencies. For mathematics grade 5 quarter 1, total only of 17, 25 most essential learning competencies. Because learning competency 8, 14, 15, 23, and 28 were dropped. Competencies number 1, 2, 3 were also dropped. Competencies number 9 and 10 merged and replaced. Competencies number 11 and 12 merged and replaced. 15 and 16 also merged and replaced. So quarter 2 of grade 5, total of 19 most essential learning competencies. Learning competency number 37 and 48 were dropped. Learning competency number 33, 35, 38, to 43 were dropped because those competencies does not satisfy the endurance criteria. Learning competency number 45, 46, and 50 were also dropped because 46 was assumed in learning competency number 45 and also 50 was assumed in learning competency number 49. Let us move to mathematics 5 grade 5 quarter 3 with a total of 21 most essential learning competencies. Um, for competency number 61, for competency number 64, 66, and 78 were dropped. Mathematics grade 5 quarter 4, total of 18 learning, most essential learning competencies. Learning competency 85, between 97, 107 were dropped. Learning competency 82, 88 also were dropped. Learning competency 81, 95, and 98 also were dropped. Mathematics 6, quarter 1, a total of 17 most essential learning competencies. Learning competency number 3, 6, 9, 12, 17, 25 of grade 6 were part were dropped. Learning competency number 18, 19, merge and replace. Learning competency number 20 and 21, merge and replace. Quarter 2 of grade 6, total of 17 most essential learning competencies. Competency number 27, 29, 32, 36 were dropped, while competency number 41 and 42 merged and replaced. Competency number 44 and 45 merged and replaced. Quarter 3 of grade 6, a total of 15 most essential learning competencies. Because learning competency number 61, 74, 27 were dropped. Learning competency number 67, 71 dropped. 49, 51 merged and replaced, while 53 and 54 were dropped. So for quarter 4 of grade 6, a total of 12 learning competencies. Competency number 78 dropped. Number 79 and 80 merged and replaced. 82 dropped. 84 and 89 dropped. So let us now move to our walkthrough of junior high school mathematics. Now, mathematics grade 7, quarter 1, total of 15 most essential learning competencies. For competency number 1 and 2, the action taken was to merge and replace, while competency number 3 and 4 also merge and replace, 15 and 19 merge and replace. For quarter 2, we only have identified 16 most essential learning competencies. We have competency number 20 and 21 dropped, competency number 25 and 36 merge and replace. Competency number 26 and 27 and also 29 were all merged and replaced because the learning competencies having the same mathematical focus or conditional skills are merged, transferred, and replaced. Competencies number 35 and 37 merged and replaced. For quarter 3 of grade 7, we only have 11 most essential learning competencies. There were no drops, nor merge and replace competencies. For quarter 4, only competency number 53 was dropped. So about grade 8, quarter 1, we only have a total of 18 most essential learning competencies. With competency number 9 and 10 merged and replaced. Competencies number 19 and 20 merged and replaced. Mathematics grade 8, quarter 2, a total of 16 most essential learning competencies. Because 21 and 22 learning competencies were merged and replaced, while 25 dropped, 31 and 32 were merged and replaced. Quarter 3 of grade 8, total of 8 most essential learning competencies. No changes for quarter 3 of grade 8. Quarter 4, of grade 8, we have only 10 most essential learning competencies. So no changes. No action data. You can see um, from the slide. So math grade 9 quarter 1, we have 16 identified most essential learning competencies. No change. No changes. No, there were no all of the competencies were most essential. So mathematics grade 9 quarter 2, we have only 11 most essential learning competencies because 21 dropped. Okay, so for mathematics grade 9 quarter 3, we have only 12 most essential learning competencies because um, competency number 29 was dropped. So what about quarter 4? Quarter 4 has only 6 most essential learning competencies without change. So mathematics grade 10 quarter 1, we have only identified 12 most essential learning competencies because competency number 3 and 4 were merged and replaced. Competency number 7 dropped. Competency number 8 and 9 merged and replaced, while competency number 10 dropped. Competencies number 13 and 16 merged and replaced. 17 dropped. For quarter 2 of grade 10, total of 12 identified most essential learning competencies. Because competency number 20 was replaced. Competencies number 27 dropped. 31 and 32 merged and replaced. Quarter 3 of grade 10, total of 10 most essential learning competencies because 34 and 38 learning competencies were taught. Quarter 4 of grade 10, total of only 6 most essential learning competencies. So let us now have an overview of our senior high school mathematics subject. So for senior high school mathematics subject, in general mathematics, statistics and probability, business mathematics. While for STEM courses, we have pre-calculus, basic calculus. As we can see from the table, for general mathematics, we have only 63 learning competencies from our current curriculum guide, while we identified only 58 essential learning competencies and down to 54 identified most essential learning competencies. For statistics and probability, 71 was from the current curriculum guide, while only 65 identified as essential and 37 as most essential. For business mathematics, 45 from the curriculum guide and 35 the most essential learning competencies. Pre-calculus, 49 and 30 most essential. Basic calculus, 39 from the current curriculum guide, learning competencies are only 32 considered as most essential. If we also compare the retained merged and those learning competencies from the original PG, we can see from the graph that the same competencies of general mathematics is the highest percentage from all the 5 subjects, while business mathematics has the highest merging and continuous rate. And the calculus is the highest percentage of competencies. So let us now move to our workflow of core subjects, um, core math subjects, and business math. So let us start from general mathematics quarter 1. For general mathematics quarter 1, we only have a total of 20 identified most essential learning competencies. Competencies number 11, 17, 25, 24, 29 were all dropped. Mathematics quarter 2, general mathematics, total of 24 identified most essential learning competencies. Competency number 49 was dropped, while 53 and 54 were merged and replaced. 52, 63 dropped. For quarter 3 of statistics and probability, total of 27 most essential learning competencies. Because competency number 5, number 12, number 24, number 25, 27 were dropped. because the content knowledge is not widely used in conducting student research in senior high school. Competencies number 28, 30, 31 also dropped. Competencies number 33, 34, 35 dropped. Competencies number 37, 38, 39 also were dropped. And also 40 and 41. So let us now move to quarter 4 of statistics probability. Total and 24 most essential learning competencies. Yes. Part number competency number 37 dropped. Quarter 1 in business mathematics, a total of 15 most essential learning competencies identified. While competency number 1 was dropped, competencies number 2 and 3 were merged. So, competencies number 1 dropped, 2 and 3 were merged and replaced. So for competencies number 2, replaced. Competencies number 5, number 10, replaced. For quarter 2 of business mathematics, we only have 20 most essential learning competencies. Because competency number 13 replaced. Competency number 3 dropped. Competency number 1, 3, 4 were all dropped. Competencies number 6 and 7 were merged and replaced. So let us now move or walk through of pre-calculus and basic calculus notes. For pre-calculus quarter 1, total of 15 most essential learning competencies identified with competency number 4, 7, 10, 13 were dropped. Competencies number 16, 17, 18, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 were dropped. Competencies of quarter 2 identified as most essential competencies is 15. So competency number 6 replaced, competency number 8 replaced, competency 10 and 11, 12 merged and replaced. While competency number 13, 14, 15, 17, 18 were all dropped. Competencies number 19, 20, 21, 22 also were dropped. For quarter 3 of basic calculus, a total of 22 identified most essential learning competencies because 13 competency was replaced. Competencies like 10 and 11, 10, 11, 12 were all dropped, including competency number 5. Competency number 6 was replaced. Competency number 7 replaced. Competency number 8 dropped. For quarter 4 of basic calculus, total of only 11 most essential learning competencies. Because competency number 3 was replaced, 4 also was replaced, 5 replaced, competency number 6 dropped, competency number 7 replaced, and competency number 10 dropped. So let us now move to unpacking of MELC. Why is it that we need to unpack the most essential learning competencies? Because we ascertained that some of those identified learning competencies were of a big chunk. So probably those competencies may have of different levels. So that should be unpacked. So why we need to unpack? Because there are some competencies that are too ambiguous, too broad, or too narrow, and reflect different kinds of goals and simultaneously. In unpacking the competencies, we have to consider knowledge, skill, core message, the value, and the little paper. The unpacking to pass analysis of the content standard. So in unpacking of the competencies, it's important to consider the teaching and the learning content. Consider the learner's characteristics. Let us also determine the required skills, knowledge, and incorporate into delivery and assessment. Determine the dimensions of competencies and also incorporate a delivery and assessment. Determine the key competencies, employability skills, and incorporate delivery and assessment. Determine also the appropriate and engaging learning activity. So let us have a very simple example of unpacked learning competencies. For grade 3, quarter 1 mathematics, For example, competencies number 5, number 7, number 11, number 10 are of a big chunk competency. So we split the competency for number 5 into two sub-competencies. For compares using relation symbols and orders in increasing or decreasing order, 4 to 5 digit numbers up to 10,000, we splitted. We splitted the competency into comparing numbers at those 10,000 using relation symbols and ordering 4 to 5 digit numbers in increasing or decreasing order. Also, competency number 7 was split into uh, two sub-competencies, also for 11 and number 15. So it is important that to split. However, we also need to consider the time allotment each of the competencies. So let us now move to the sample lesson exemplar in mathematics. So I choose uh, the first quarter of grade 8 mathematics that is to be done week 7 with a duration of 3 days. So in the lesson this part was clearly presented the content standard, the performance standard, the learning competency and its code, the key concept, the learning objectives, is very important. Number 2, the content, and also specify the references. Number 3, the learning procedures. So for learning procedures, we have part 1, the preliminary activities. Preliminary activities include prayer, greeting, yes, preliminary activities will start with prayer, greeting, checking of attendance, and reminders. Part of the preliminary activities is a drill, um, review, and motivation. Second part of the learning procedure is the developmental activity. Developmental activity includes the activity, the analysis, the abstraction, the application. So for part 4 is the evaluation. Part 5, agreement, alignment. Part 6, the reflection. And also do not forget to answer and input the data like numbers, number of learners who earned 80% in the evaluation, the number of learners who require additional activities for remediation who scored below 80%, and also try to answer the following questions. Did the remedial lessons work? And also include the number of learners who have caught up with the lesson, number of learners who need to continue to remediation, and also which of my teaching strategies worked well and why did those strategies work. Include also at the bottom part of your lesson part your name, of course. It's your hard work. You have to put your name as the writer, include the school and the division. So if you are putting some illustration, some figures in your lesson exemplar to avoid um, copying some illustrations from the internet, from the book, or from other sources, ask for the help of some illustrators. But you have to also include the name of the illustrator, including the school and the division. That's the lesson exemplar.